Okay, so we've got the last week of March, and we're going to see how is March stacking up compared to, well, last year, and then more importantly, how is it stacking up from what we have seen really since June? What is that looking like? So before we get into this awesome show today, which we're also going to do some Q&A since, well, I was duly advised I hadn't done a little bit of Q&A of late. So we pulled off some of the top questions, and we're just going to go ahead and go over that. So we have a good show for you today. It's going to be short. We're going to run through it relatively quick because, well, we want you on with your day. I mean, it is Saturday, and it's nice. So before we do this, subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell or click the bell or whatever it is so you can get notified when we do these because, again, this is in real time. Believe it or not, a lot of our clients actually pay attention to this as they are preparing. So as an example, Danielle, get to meet you, I guess, video to video here. And this will help you guys understand everything of what to expect over the next coming week, months, what we're trending towards the next year. Because one of the questions she asked me, she's like, George, when should I buy a house? When should I start looking to buy a home? She's looking at relocating at the end of the year. And so there were a few variables that came into play that we needed to talk about. And these videos will help you get there. So with that, let's get the show on the road. First, the last week in March. So that means next week we're going to see kind of how things panned out because that's when all of our metrics come together with my friends at Trend Graphics, who are some pretty awesome dudes who help me kind of calculate all the different metrics since we look at a lot of different things in a lot of different areas. So month over month, we are up 15.1%, which is not common. It is when we take a look at new on market coming up at 32.6%. But remember, because we have that sponge and it is still on your counter and it is still super dry, you betcha 33.8. So every time, and as you've been watching this every week, every time this number goes up, that number goes up. Every time this number goes down, that number goes down. Why? Because there's such a massive pent-up demand of buyers out there right now that as the inventory drops, our pendants drop with it because there's nothing to sell. Unless you're like us that get off-market homes, which give people more opportunities. There's something to think about. So these two numbers always go hand in hand. Then we come down, sales are up 9.3% month over month, which is still pretty amazing. But when we compare that to last year, inventory is at half. That's an evil laugh, isn't it? That's not even funny, but it's in a sick, kind of wrong kind of way it's funny. So we're selling more homes with less inventory, like half. And last week I kind of kidded around. In fact, I had some funny conversations with some of some clients and whatnot, and they're like, it's kind of true, George, when you think about it, we were told to stay home, and like all kids, they do what they're not supposed to do. So they go out and we have the most amazing historic real estate year ever, and we're supposed to be home. What does that say? Anyway, so as we come down, so new on market year over year is down basically 1%. Pretty negligible. It's just a couple of homes. All right, but pendant is up 13.2 and solds are up 11.7%. So year over year, we are absolutely just crushing it and continuing to crush it. Now, I had a really great question by Hassan, and he's on our team and he helps us with the metrics and the home evaluation, since we do about 80 home evaluations a week for different folks who request, hey, what's my home worth? And hey, I want to get an idea of what's going on and whatnot, with the value in the market and whatnot. So Hassan, shout out to you. You do an awesome job. Thank you very much. And as we were looking back, because, he's been with us for a little over a year, I guess year and a half. And so I said, it's amazing. And I would reference prior years. And he's like, oh, you know what, George, what does that mean? What do you mean by that? And so we went through it. So I actually scrolled back and showed him my prior years, since I've only been doing this over 27 years, which is amazing. But anyway, he was like, wow. And here's the wow. Okay, so every week, Marie and May, they post these little charts for me in the dark green, right? That is sold, and the light green over here, that is that's inventory available. And I had to flip sides of the map because, well, you're going to see here in a second. Remember, light green is homes available, and dark green, those are homes sold. And you can see on the dark green that those are outperforming the light green hands down. And is that normal? The answer is no. So no. I think I can make a song out of that. But anyway, so no. There is a 5-year running chart. And as you can see over here, this is normal. You see, and if I went back 15 years, it would look just the same way. That the light green has historically almost been twice what the dark green is, until we get to here. When we take a look at basically May through to today, everything is flipped. Everything is flipped. We have half the inventory. And people are like, George, I just can't find a house. We have a new client that we're meeting with on Monday, and sent, we were talking about some initial information, get some feedback. She's like, oh, I don't like any of these homes. This is not right. And I think her name is Hetty or Hedda. And, we're like, okay, well, that's only what's, available out in the Northwest MLS. We'll talk more about off-market homes. However, here's what is available. She's like, that's it? And I started to laugh, and I'm like, yes. That's why, we need to dial this in, and here are steps you need to do to make yourself the most effective in the market, to make yourself the most desirable in the eyes of a seller, so that also helps you close a transaction with the fewest hassles possible. Kim and Chris are experiencing that. Thank you, guys. And it is awesome when people follow the steps, the guidance, how much easier that becomes. All right. So when we talk about inventory and what's going on, so just in the last 7 days, okay, we've had 1,439 coming on market. Look at this, 1,866 that went off market. So we're still taking more off market than what's coming on market. Number of sold, 1,235. When we take a look at the last week, okay, I guess 14 days ago, we look at almost similar numbers here, and very similar numbers there. So we're seeing that pattern is continuing. We are still seeing the momentum. What is holding the momentum back? Those doggone pesky sellers that won't go on market. If they would just get off that fence, get their ass on the market, we could satisfy a lot of those buyers with pent-up demand, which poses a little bit of a challenge for some of the sellers that we have conversations with, is say, George, where do I go? And those are conversations. Those are really deep conversations that we have with folks, as far as, what are your hobbies? What are you looking at doing? What's the next stage of your life looking like? What is really kind of, the best outcome? And that can be a very difficult conversation, especially if they're looking at downsizing, or what we call empty nesters. And so we have really good conversations, yes, and they take more time, so that they have a good plan. They don't feel that it's rushed, because at this point in their life, they really don't wish to rush things, and they have no need to. So making sure that is a good quality schedule, as far as a plan, and we work through that. We come up with different options, and then we go from there. Anyway, there was something else. Oh, mortgage rates. Okay, which is also one of the questions. So mortgage rates actually kind of stopped going up. They've kind of stabilized. They're staying at the 3.375 for owner financing. For non-owner occupancy, right, or rental properties, second homes, we're looking at 3.875 or 4% with 1 point. So remember, April 1, the guidelines are going to, actually they're already in process, and we've seen, we actually saw rates jump with some folks as far as 1% for non-owner occupied. We've seen points go up. We've seen a restriction. We've seen a request for more down payment. In other words, because they're going from a 25, 30%, we're going to go down to a 7% only in a portfolio that Fannie and Freddie can go ahead and write as far as accept non-owner occupied or second homes type of thing. And that is going to really tighten the belt. It's going to tighten the belt with a lot of folks because there's going to be a lot less inventory, which means they're going to be able to pick the best from the best of the best of the best. That's all there is to it. All right. Let's get on to the Q&A really quick. Kiln from Bothell asked, why are there so few foreclosures? Okay. We haven't seen, Kiln, we haven't seen a lot of foreclosures since probably 2012. Our market is still, and even before that, we never saw a ton. Albeit right now, it is a sparse. I think sparse is a really good word. It is a sparse amount. Okay, it's like sometimes how much grass grows in my yard next to the fir trees, right? There's a sparse amount, and so it is one of those things that banks realize that in today's market, they will do paint, carpet, and vinyl, and they'll sell it at market value, so there's no discount, and or people that do find themselves in that situation for one reason or another, the market in many circumstances has improved enough that it does not become a foreclosure, that they're able to get it sold, or whether they're working on a modification or a loan workout, or they just get basically, hey, let's get this thing sold and we'll work on the mitigation side. Also, there's a forbearance that's in place so that if you're missing your payments because of the COVID issue and whatnot, it was extended another 6 months, and that is going to have, I would say, a modest impact on it, not massive in our area by any stretch. So there are other areas that you can find good valued homes. Fixers that have been on the market for a while, off-market fixers are a really good option to consider. And those are things that we can have a deeper conversation about if you'd like, depending on who you're working with and whatnot. Give you just some insights and ideas. It takes time. It's really hard to find the really good homes. It takes more effort. A lot of folks just aren't willing to do it. So sometimes there's other alternatives for you to consider. All right. Hannah, what is the difference between escrow and closing? Okay. The escrow process is a neutral third party that is a facilitator that allows the documentation to be collected from a seller, deed of trust and things like this, and any loans that they have against the property. They get the money from the buyer. They create a new deed of trust. They facilitate the payoff of all of the liens and get everything recorded so it's done correctly, hand the new deed of trust to the buyer or to the buyer's bank, and then basically the net income, the residual funds, goes to the seller. Now, all of that is called an escrow. Closing is the actual day that the escrow will take all of the recorded new documents down to the county and record them. And then once the county accepts and assigns them recording numbers, that is closing, okay? And typically, you will sign at escrow for your closing. You'll sign at escrow anywhere between 5 and 3 days before the transaction is technically scheduled to close. Hopefully, that provides some clarity because they are two different things. When you sign the documents, that doesn't mean, woohoo, I'm done, or woohoo, I'm a homeowner. What it means is that we have a few more days until it records. And then, of course, you get recording numbers between 4 and 5:30 at night from escrow saying, hey, we've officially closed. Sellers then get their money the next day because if they're doing a wire or a check or whatnot, they have to close it. And if they're not getting closing numbers until 4 to 5:30 at night, naturally, there's no way to wire since cutoffs are on East Coast time, which is 2 to 3 o'clock. All right. Hopefully that answers it. If not, ping me back. All right. Kumar. Let's see here. Why are interest rates going up and will they come back down? All right. That's a really good question. Interest rates are like the stock market. You could say, hey, my stock came down. Will it go back up? Yes, it probably will. In regards to interest rates, it is based on that because they follow the stock market, your bonds and your 10-year treasury and mortgage-backed securities. When you watch those, okay, so as the market does better, that means people pull out of bonds, which the value of bonds go down, interest rates go up. If we see the inverse of that, we see a lot of volatility in the market and in the international market or consumer confidence amongst the big traders and whatnot, and they start pulling out of the market, going back into bonds, that increases the value of the bonds, interest rates come back down. So you need to watch that. So the answer is, will interest rates come back down? Yeah, they do this all the time. Will they start hedging continually upwards? Well, they have been for about a month and a half. That's not new. It's a given. Are we going to be able to maintain 2.6% mortgage interest rates, in perpetuity? The answer is no. And you guys are so spoiled with that. It's unbelievable because even 3.375 is an amazing rate, all things considered. Okay, so it's not as great as 2.6. Okay, so that is an amazing rate when we are consistently used to seeing 7, 8%. That's amazing. So all things considered, just keep that in mind. Watch your bond rates and your mortgage-backed securities. And then, hey, touch base with Dan Golden at Cornerstone Lending or Juliana at Qualstar Credit Union. Hey, give these guys a call. You want to know metrics? Talk to those two. There's not many lenders that actually follow track and give you great advice like they can. They may not be able to match everybody dollar for dollar. Sometimes you get some crazy special programs that are available online that others just can't offer. There are risks that go with that, but I tell you, for customer service and everything else, Dan Golden and Juliana, hands down, guys, great, amazing resource. That's why I use them. I've been doing this for over 20 years, well, 27 years, almost 30 years. And I surround myself by only the best. BentleyContractors.com, there's a classic example. Only the best make that list. We get lots of requests, but if you don't meet the criteria, you don't go on there. And I only want people that are the absolute best around me because then you guys get the benefit of that. So there you go. All right, Lisa from Redmond said, is it cheaper to build a home rather than buy? Oh, gosh, how to answer that one. Yes and no. But what I always tell people, in fact, Michael and Manise are going to be laughing about this one. There are 3 things that cause a divorce: money, kids, yes, and building a house. Be very careful with this option. No, I'm absolutely dead serious. Yes, there's a lot of issues that go with this. Yes, you absolutely have to surround yourself with fabulous, top-tier people. If you get the wrong people behind you, it's just a miserable experience. I can just attest to that. And, the key is, guys, it's better to pay a little bit more than you planned than a little less than you should have. Always going with what you perceive as the cheapest contractor is not always the best plan. Just saying. Okay. And hence, it's why we surround ourselves with the best people. It's why we have the subs that we do, because we trust them and we've worked with them for a long time, and they provide continuous, consistent, great service. And that's something just to keep in mind. All right. Yes, at times it can be lesser expensive to build a home than to buy one. Okay. You get a little bit more control over area. You get a little bit more control. You get a lot more control over what goes in it. What is the floor plan? But with that comes a cost, because it becomes a custom, right? And right now, with lumber prices up, with labor prices that are up, with builder availability being low, those costs, they get passed along. And supply and demand, right? There's a huge demand for them right now, meaning builders and supplies, and on both sides, so it makes it a little bit tighter. The however is, can it be beneficial? Sure, it can. Just make sure that when you're looking at buying the land and whatnot, you are working with somebody that clearly understands the cost of that development, okay? Most people think I'm kidding. Anytime you look at a lot, you need to figure between $80,000 to $100,000 of entitlements to that property to get it builder ready. People think I'm kidding, and then all of a sudden they start running the numbers like, Oh my God, you're right. I know. I build homes. I know this. And a lot of builders are out there going, yeah, that's right, and more. Okay, so you should anticipate roughly about $200 a square foot to build a home. That's a good, safe number to use for a modestly built home. If you're building a, a $2.5+ million home, you need to bump that price up. Okay, if you're doing a remodel, you need to look at $250 to $350 a square foot. You might say, what? Well, yes, because you've got so much more labor involved. You're not starting new where everything is going up as scheduled. No, you gotta tear this apart. We gotta tie it in. We gotta figure out how to get this thing balanced out. We gotta make sure that everything lines up so that your house doesn't, kind of have an angle to it, and make sure that it has a good flow. And it's just more labor to tie everything in. That's why some new construction builders have no desire to do remodels, because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of adjustments to get that to match. So the cost goes up. Why? Because of labor. It takes a lot more time. I was just chatting with the client. I said, look, it's cheaper for you to tear down your house and build a new one than it is to add on and double the size of your house. And they thought I was kidding. Ran the numbers, they're like, holy mackerel, you're right. Okay, so keep that in mind. So Lisa, it's kind of a long version. Hope that answered your question. Let me know if you guys have other questions. Please post them up there. Love to answer questions. We'll do some more Q&A and whatnot. Let us know what you want to know. There's no strings attached. This is all free. It's in real time. You don't have to worry about the January stats that are coming out. That cracks me up. They're talking about January. Here we are at the end of March. If you want real-time information, share it, enjoy it, ask questions. There's no strings attached. I'm not going to hunt you down. Don't worry. In the meantime, you guys have a beautiful day. Remember to subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Take care.